You're watching The Last Word and I'm Marya Shakil. The Places of Worship Act 1991 in fact maintains that the religious status of any place of worship should stay the way it was on August 15th, 1947. Section 3 of the Act bars the conversion of the places of worship. The Ram Janmabhoomi case, pending since before independence, was the only exception. But after the Supreme Court order of November 2019 allowing a temple in the disputed area in Ayodhya, a petition was filed challenging the constitutional validity of certain sections of the Places of Worship Act. Now, with the consecration ceremony of the Ram temple over, there is a new push for other pilgrim centers like Mathura and Varanasi. Today, BJP MP of the Rajya Sabha, Harnath Singh, demanded that the Places of Worship Act 1991 should be repealed. He claimed that it's a violation of the rights and secularism as a principle which is enshrined in the Constitution. Harnath Singh will be joining me shortly, but first up, let's listen in to what he said in the Rajya Sabha today.
महोदय, इस कानून का स्पष्ट अर्थ यह है कि विदेशी आक्रांताओं द्वारा तलवार की नोक पर ज्ञानवापी और भगवान श्री कृष्ण की जन्मभूमि सहित अन्य पूजा स्थलों पर जो बलात् कब्जा किया गया, उसे विगत सरकार द्वारा कानूनी रूप से सही ठहरा दिया गया है। मान्यवर, यह कानून मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम राम और भगवान श्री कृष्ण के मध्य भेदभाव पैदा करता है, जबकि दोनों ही भगवान विष्णु के अवतार हैं।
And let me go straight to the Member of Parliament who's joining us live on NDTV. Harnath Singh ji, thank you so much for speaking to NDTV. आपने आज राज्यसभा में प्लेसेस ऑफ वर्शिप एक्ट को अबॉलिश करने की बात कही है। ये जो आपका बयान आया है बहुत ही विवादित है। मुझे जानना है कि आप इस बात आप हटाने की क्यों बात कर रहे हैं?
देखिए, ऐसा है कि आज़ादी के बाद से लेकर के आज तक कांग्रेस ने हमेशा हिंदू विरोधी काम किए हैं और दर्जनों ऐसे कानून बनाए हैं जिससे कि हिंदुओं का मान, सम्मान, स्वाभिमान नीचा होता है। और दूसरे, कांग्रेस ने चंद वोटों को प्राप्त करने के लिए हिंदू और मुसलमानों में क्या नाम है तफरका डालने की कोशिश की है, दूरियां बढ़ाने की कोशिश की है। तो इसी कड़ी में जो पूजा स्थल 1991 ये कानून बनाया गया, यह कानून पूरी तरीके से अतार्किक है, असंवैधानिक है और इसमें मनमानापन है। इस कानून में कहा गया है कि पूजा स्थलों की जो स्थिति 15 अगस्त 1947 को थी, उसमें भगवान राम की जन्मभूमि अयोध्या छोड़कर बाकी शेष जितने भी पूजा स्थल हैं उनकी स्थिति वही रहेगी, यानी किसी प्रकार का कोई बदलाव नहीं किया जाएगा। इसका अर्थ ये है कि जो विदेशी आक्रांताओं ने लाखों की संख्याओं में मंदिरों को तोड़ा और इस देश के हिंदू समाज के मान, सम्मान, स्वाभिमान को तोड़ने की कोशिश किया, उस पर कानूनी एक स्वीकृति बना दी इस कानून को बना करके। और ये कानून जो है संविधान में जो हमको समानता और निरपेक्षता की, धर्मनिरपेक्षता की जो सिद्धांतों का ये कानून उल्लंघन करता है, जो संविधान की प्रस्तावना के मिलाकर के और संरचना को मिलाकर के उसके विपरीत है। इस कानून में ये कहा गया है यदि कोई भी कानून यदि इस कानून को तोड़ता है कोई व्यक्ति, तो उसको 1 साल से लेकर 3 साल तक की सजा दी जाएगी और उस पर जुर्माना किया जाएगा। इस कानून में यह भी प्राविधान है कि जो इनमें किसी प्रकार का कोई दोबारा समीक्षा की जाएगी, ना ही कोई किसी अदालत में इसको चुनौती दे सकते हैं। तो ये हिंदुओं को नीचा दिखाने के लिए और हिंदू भावनाओं को ठेस पहुंचाने के लिए ये मनमाने तरीके से जो कानून बनाया गया है, ये कानून समाप्त होने चाहिए। और दूसरे, ये जो भगवान राम हैं, भगवान शंकर हैं, भगवान कृष्ण हैं, इस देश की मिट्टी के कण कण में समाये हुए हैं। यानी भगवान राम और शंकर और भगवान कृष्ण के बिना इस देश की जो मूल थति है, जो मूल हमारी पूंजी है, वही समाप्त हो जाएगी। तो और इस समय देश के अंदर क्या नाम है, भगवान कृष्ण की जन्मभूमि और ज्ञानवापी को लेकर के बड़ा लोगों की मांग उठ रही है, और उसमें ये जो कानून है ये अड़चन डालता है। इसलिए इस कानून को मैंने शून्यकाल में आज पूरी तरीके से निरस्त करने की मांग किया है।
जी, लेकिन मेरा सवाल आपसे ये है कि प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी सबका साथ सबका विकास की बात करते हैं, लेकिन आप एक तरह से बांटने की कोशिश हो रही है इस तरह के, अगर आप कानून की बात कर रहे हैं तो क्या कोई एजेंडा है चुनाव से पहले इस समाज को बांटने की कोई कोशिश कर रहे हैं? यही आपके विरोधी दल बोल रहे हैं।
नहीं, समाज को बांटने की भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने कभी कोशिश नहीं की है। भारतीय जनता पार्टी हमेशा सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबका प्रयास, सबका विश्वास कुल इस मंत्र को लेकर आगे बढ़ रही है। और पिछले 9 वर्षों के हमारे पार्टी के चित्र, चरित्र, चाल, चेहरे ने और आदरणीय मोदी जी ने अपने चिंतन और कर्तृत्व से ये सिद्ध कर दिया है कि मोदी जी और भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार 140 करोड़ के नागरिकों के हितों के लिए काम कर रही है। ये काम तो केवल कांग्रेस और इस देश के जो विरोधी दल हैं वो काम करते हैं। अब आपने ये कहा कि मैं पार्टी की लाइन से हटकर के बात कर रहा हूं, तो ऐसा नहीं है। मैं कल का ही माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी का एक वक्तव्य आपको पढ़ करके सुनाता हूं। उन्होंने कहा कि आज़ादी के बाद जो लोग लंबे समय तक सत्ता में रहे वे पूजा स्थलों की महत्ता को नहीं समझ सके और उन्होंने राजनीतिक फायदों के लिए अपनी ही संस्कृति पर शर्मिंदा होने की प्रवृत्ति स्थापित किया। और उन्होंने कहा कि कोई भी देश अपने अतीत को भूलकर एवं मिटाकर और अपनी जड़ों को काटकर प्रगति नहीं कर सकता। तो मैंने ये जो मुद्दा उठाया है वो पार्टी के चिंतन के अनुसार ही है। और दूसरी बात यह है कि भगवान राम और भगवान कृष्ण, हम सभी जानते हैं, भगवान विष्णु के अवतार हैं। इस कानून के द्वारा भगवान राम और कृष्ण की जो मध्य जो वो है, वो जो भेदभाव करने की कोशिश की गई है, जबकि दोनों ही भगवान विष्णु के अवतार हैं। और यह भी स्थापित तथ्य है कि समान कृत्यों और समान परिस्थितियों के लिए 2 कानून नहीं बना सकते। इससे भावना को क्या नाम है, ये कानून तोड़ता है। इसलिए ये उपासना स्थल जो कानून है ये सामाजिक सद्भाव को, सांप्रदायिक सद्भाव को तोड़ने वाला है। तो देश के अंदर एक नई संस्कृति खड़ा करने के लिए नया क्या नाम है, एक माहौल बनाने के लिए इस कानून को मैंने समाप्त करने की मांग किया है।
लेकिन जब राम जन्मभूमि का फैसला आया था तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने साफ तौर पर यही कहा था कि ये मुद्दा अयोध्या का इशू ही पर खत्म हो जाएगा और फिर इस तरह का मंदिर मस्जिद विवाद आगे नहीं उठेगा। तो आप ये इशू अभी क्यों उठा रहे हैं?
देखिए, ये उसका नाम सुप्रीम कोर्ट तो जो इन्होंने पूजा स्थल 1991 बनाया उसी के अनुरूप, तो उसी कानून के हिसाब से तो वो बोलेगा, उसके इतर तो बोल नहीं सकता। अब ये कानून तो सरकार ने बनाया, तो सरकार को इसको निरस्त करने की आवश्यकता है, क्योंकि ये तो हिंदू मुसलमानों के अंदर एक खाई पैदा कर रहा है, देश को तोड़ने का काम कर रहा है ये कानून जो है, इसलिए ये समाप्त होना चाहिए, ऐसा मेरा चिंतन है। तो ये जो कानून बनाया है ये पूरी तरीके से इसमें मनमानापन है, अतार्किक है, असंवैधानिक है। ये जितनी जल्दी समाप्त हो जाएगा उतनी जल्दी देश के अंदर एक नया माहौल खड़ा होगा। दूसरी बात इसी से जुड़ी हुई है कि मैं अपने मुस्लिम भाइयों से भी अपील करना चाहता हूँ कि उनके पूर्वज भगवान राम और भगवान कृष्ण थे, उनकी धमनियों में भगवान राम और कृष्ण का ही क्या नाम है रक्त दौड़ रहा है। तो अपने पुरखों के प्रति श्रद्धा भाव और आदर भाव प्रकट करना ये हमारा, आपका, उनका सबका दायित्व बनता है। इसलिए उनको पूरे सद्भावना के साथ जो है भगवान कृष्ण की जन्मभूमि मथुरा और ज्ञानवापी, ये दोनों जो है हिंदुओं को सौंप देना चाहिए ताकि देश के अंदर एक नया माहौल खड़ा हो सके।
मेरा आखिरी सवाल आपसे ये होगा कि क्या आपकी पार्टी भाजपा आपके साथ है इस इशू पर?
मेरा जो मैंने पूजा स्थल 1991 जो शून्यकाल में उठाया उसका और माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा है कि वो एक ही बात है, उसमें किसी प्रकार का कोई फर्क नहीं है। लेकिन हाँ, देश के अंदर कुछ ऐसी जाहिर ताकतें हैं जो इस देश को तोड़ना चाहती हैं, हिंदू मुसलमानों को लड़ना चाहती हैं। हिंदू मुसलमान, हिंदू सिख जैन बौद्ध, उनके धार्मिक जो स्वतंत्रता है उस पर प्रहार समय समय पर करती रहती हैं। और दुर्भाग्य की बात है कि मुस्लिम समाज के अंदर भी आज़ादी के बाद से लेकर आज तक जितने भी धार्मिक राजनीतिक सामाजिक नेता रहे, उन्होंने भी मुसलमानों की जो मूलभूत समस्याएं हैं, गरीबी है, क्या नाम है, अशिक्षा है, बेरोजगारी है, कुपोषण है, इन मूलभूत समस्याओं को इन्होंने कभी नहीं उठाया। केवल उनकी भावनाओं को उभार करके क्या नाम है, हिंदू मुसलमानों को लड़ाने का इन्होंने कुचक्र रचा, इसके अतिरिक्त कुछ नहीं कहा। इसलिए मैं सामान्य मुस्लिम भाइयों से अपील करता हूं कि वो इस प्रकार के जो तत्व हैं, इस प्रकार की ताकतें हैं, उनके खेल को समझें और एक नए भारत के नए निर्माण में सबके साथ खड़े हों।
Thank you so much for joining us. Vikas Singh, Senior Advocate of Supreme Court and former President of Supreme Court Bar Association is joining us. We also have Kapil Sankla, lawyer of the Apex Court. Vikas Singh, beginning with you, because the Supreme Court's verdict on Ram Janmabhoomi was very clear. It had repeatedly invoked the Places of Worship Act 1991, which seeks to maintain the religious character of holy structures as it was at independence. The purpose was that the secular values of Indian Constitution should be maintained, but with this kind of statement being made on the floor of the House, a bill being moved, and similar petitions being filed in the Supreme Court with regards to other places of worship, where is it all heading? Because would you say that the grey area has been that particular section, which is section 3? Section 3, which doesn't really give that clarity. Section 3 and 4 of the Act.
Well, you have to understand the perspective in which the Supreme Court decided the Ram Janmabhoomi issue. So this Act did not apply to the Ram Janmabhoomi at all. So really speaking, there was no question of interpreting the 91 Act in the Ram Janmabhoomi case. But if you see the Act, if you analyze the Act on its own, the whole purpose was that there should be Ram Janmabhoomi should not be demolished, and the case with regard to Ram Janmabhoomi should go on. And it was said that the other places of worship will not be converted, and whatever they were in 1947, they will remain in 1947. Now, the whole purpose of the Act was to ensure that Ram Janmabhoomi litigation goes on, and both the sides abide by the verdict and do not take the law into their own hands. And at the same time, the other religious places, assurance was given to the minority community that the other religious places will not be converted. Now, what happened? You did not achieve anything by this Act. You really wanted that the Ram Janmabhoomi should remain protected and should abide by the decision of the court. But Ram Janmabhoomi was demolished. And ultimately, the verdict also came with regard to the existence of a Ram temple there. And now there is a Ram temple already made at the site. And the other cases, in my view, I mean, if the law had said that if there is any change, forcible change of any religious place, then there should be a very stringent punishment. 1 year to 3 years, I think, was a very, very small punishment. So idea was, I mean, it is completely illogical. What is the purpose of saying that there will be no litigation with regard to, or all cases will abate? I mean, that I don't understand. If people are wanting to go by the rule of law and want to establish there was a Hindu temple or there was a Christian temple or any other temple at a particular place and it has been converted into a mosque forcibly, and if they can, give a proof to the court, and if the court decides, I don't understand why that should be barred. So the Act really barred.
My question is, since in the past also the BJP, when this entire discussion was happening, debate was happening on the floor of the parliament in 1991, they were objecting to it. Is there a possibility that the parliament can repeal this altogether?
I think it should be repealed, and they should bring in another Act which will only bar forcible conversion and make forcible conversion, penal with very, very severe consequences. And why should the law be not allowed to take its own course? I don't understand. We are, even after the Janmabhoomi verdict, the entire country, both communities have taken it with the right spirit, and there is a Ram temple now at the site. So I don't understand if the court can rule for any temple that or for any religious place that there was a temple earlier, it has been forcibly converted into a mosque by Muslim invaders, then why should that litigation not be allowed to be? So why should the rule of law be stalled like this? I mean, I don't understand. There is no logic in this act. The logic should only be that there should be no forcible conversion. But why should the legal process, why should suits abate? Why should people not be permitted to file a suit to establish that there was a temple at this particular site? So then what
happens to the Supreme Court verdict with regards to the Ram Janmabhoomi
Supreme Court, as I told you, Marya, Supreme Court did not deal with this act at all. It's a passing reference of this act. There is no question of, because if you read this act, Marya, and you are a smart girl, you can, I know you can read the act very well. The Supreme Court merely notices the 91 Act, and the 91 Act actually exempted the Ram Janmabhoomi from its application. So there was no question of Supreme Court looking into the 1991 Act at all, or to say that it is justified. Supreme Court has just in a passing reference, while noting the chronology of events, has noticed the 1991 Act, but there is no adjudication of the 1991 Act, and there is no ruling by the Supreme Court that this act is correct and the rest of the places should not be, sort of converted into, or there should be, this act should be not challenged. And as you are aware, in spite of the judgment, Supreme Court itself has issued notice with regard to this petition, which has challenged this act, and the Supreme Court is here examining that separately. So, really speaking, this issue was not at all an issue in the judgment with regard to the Ram Janmabhoomi, because that was only dealing with, because that was exempted from the operation of this act, and it was dealing only with whether there was a temple here, Ram temple, or whether Ram was born here or not, and which was decided finally in favor of the Lord Ram. So there is no way that the Supreme Court judgment will in any manner be impacted. Okay. If the Parliament were to repeal this act and bring in a more stringent act, which should only bar forcible conversion.
All right. Vikas Singh, appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let me bring in Kapil Sankla now. Mr. Sankla, I want to understand what really is the purpose of the act. As it has been defined here, it was indeed to maintain that secular character. But, right. And the Supreme Court verdict, and I'm going to refer to the Ram Janmabhoomi verdict in this 1045-page verdict, it says that first, it prohibits the conversion of any place of worship. In doing so, it speaks to the future of mandating that the character of a place of worship shall not be altered. Then, of course, the contentious sections were section 3 and 4. But shouldn't it have stopped at Ram Janmabhoomi? Why is it taking this shape and form?
All right, Marya, just to give this a proper context is this, that the act barred people going to the court and filing cases. Right? So the act, when it came in the picture, so to say, 1991, also had to deal with the fact that there were already cases going on pertaining to Ram Janmabhoomi. And so there was a specific exemption as far as that property or that premise or that, monument is concerned. So that is the first part of it. And the second part of it is this, that the act itself could not have stopped only there because it is a very loosely worded act in itself. It says that certain other properties and places are exempted, for example, monuments, places of certain importance, etc. So isn't that confusing? And thirdly, it actually bars people from going to the court. That's your constitutional right. Where else do you go and raise an agreement or a grief against a particular act which you think has been wrong? So basically what this act sought to do was somehow create a status quo, a stay, and said that we are granting a stay. This stay is retrospective in effect from 1945, and that you cannot go to the court and challenge anything else. So as far as the fairness of this act is concerned, it absolutely failed on the touchstone of the Constitution of India. It's your constitution right to go to the court. It is your constitutional right not to suffer a subsequent order that has a retrospective effect that takes away your effective rights or your constitutional rights. So as far as this act was concerned, it just created a status quo without really getting into the nuances and the facts of the case. So it was a very general, so to say, a painting by a broad brush without deciding any issue whatsoever. And that's the unfairness of this act. And the second unfairness, as I just said, was that it also stopped you from going to the court while creating a retrospective effect. Yes, please.
Mr. Sankla, the question is, of course, of what it means post a verdict. Right. And when there are contentious issues and in the backdrop of the ASI survey, which has come with regards to the Gyanvapi mosque and the Kashi Vishwanath temple, the title suit that we are seeing, do you think it has to enter the domain of legislature now with what the Member of Parliament of the BJP has said, that there's need to repeal it, have a relook, have a fresh look at it?
I think it is high time that we should. As I said, that the first instance when I was again arguing on this very issue, I had said that this act per se makes no sense. When you actually talk about, cases in court, you would appreciate that a stay granted by the court only has an effect for 6 months and then it has to be revisited. That's the law. Now, how can you actually have a piece of legislature that grants a stay and then says that you can't go to the court and the stay will never get repealed, never get revisited, never get questioned? You cannot have an act like that. And if you have an act like that, it is high time that you revisit that act and you correct the blunder that this act itself is. Now, the courts cannot really do it. The courts can say that we have found a legal vacuum and we can fill it up. But where the act already exists, it's the legislature that has to visit it, take a call on it.
But again, as I said, if it is an attempt to change the religious character, I think the purpose was also that in order to maintain communal harmony, the religious character, barring one, which was Ram Janmabhoomi, should be settled in the context of what it was before 1947.
Somebody enters your
house. At the time of 15th August 1947.
Just giving you a very short, small example. Somebody enters your house, takes possession of it, changes its name, right? And you cannot do anything about it. It is not protecting harmony. It is only festering deeper animosity and void. There is a historical act which is a historical wrong. It has to be dealt with. You cannot brush it under the carpet by granting a stay and saying that this stay is ad infinitum, cannot be challenged, cannot be questioned. This is what this act did. Probably, even if the politicians then thought that it is actually going to ensure that there is harmony between different religions, not really. It is only a reminder of something that cannot be corrected. And you take away the power to go to the court, basically saying let the people take up arms because we have actually taken away their power to go and have a logical discussion of it in the court premises. So how can this act be right? And how can this act actually say that this is protecting a harmony between different religions when the very fact of it granting a stay creates disharmony between the different communities?
Yes, that's a way of looking at it, certainly, Kapil. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us. We are putting out the entire debate on NDTV.com. Slipping into a short break. I'll be back with left, right and center in just a bit.